This is the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, March 4th. March 4th, everyone, into 2025. We tell you what you need to know, follow up on context of tech stories. We don't just tell you them, we give you some meaning around them. Help each other understand all this crazy stuff. Today, Jason Howell is telling us the big trends from Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. And yes, I will ask him about Hamon. We'll hear from you through some emails. Me? Oh, I'm Tom Merritt. Let's start with what you need to know with the big story. And the big story continues to be what's going on at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, Spain. So let's round up some of the latest big announcements. Nothing announced its 3A smartphones. They are both 6.77-inch displays. So not a bigger one for the Pro. They're both the same size display. The difference is the 3A Pro has a round camera housing and a 3x periscope telephoto lens, along with a couple other spec bumps, but not a whole lot. It's a slightly better camera. There's also a new feature called Essential Space on these phones in early access that will let you collect screenshots and photos and just stuff that you're like, you know what, I'm going to need that later. Let me put it in the essential space. And then a generative model presents what it thinks the most relevant ones are for you when you press the essential key, which is a little button on the side of the phone that several reviewers said they kept mistaking for the power button. Anyway, nothing says you'll get 3 years of OS feature updates, 6 years of security patches. So nothing outlandishly special there. That's pretty standard, maybe even on the lower end of standard. The 3A starts at $379, though. So this is an affordable phone. The 3A Pro with that little extra camera bump starts at $459. Jason Howell, I believe as I am recording this, is attending the launch event for the Nothing phones, and we'll have a full report on Nothing tomorrow. I mean, it'll be, you know what I mean. More new capabilities for Google Gemini were announced at Mobile World Congress. Google Gemini extensions are now called apps. Gemini integrates with apps from Google and others like Spotify to carry out agentic tasks like they always do a plan a group itinerary, and then it'll map it all out for you and text your group about it, that kind of thing. Google also updated Gemini on iOS to support lock screen and control center widgets now. 9to5Google says the widgets are type prompt, talk live, open mic, use camera, share image, and share file. But again, those are now available also on iOS. The Internet Society and Meta announced the Connectivity Co-Funding Initiative to spend $30 million between now and 2030 to expand internet infrastructure in parts of the world not serviced by commercial providers. And Meta is not supposed to be the last one to give money to this. The Internet Society says it's looking for more partners to help with the initiative. Tencent Cloud launched its Super App as a Service, or unhelpfully shortened as TCSAS, or maybe there's another A in there. Anyway, it's a way to help companies build apps that have a lot of different functionality in them: messaging, live streaming, e-commerce, etc. Basically, it's a white label version of Tencent's own WeChat, if you've ever heard about or used that. Orange, the telco in Middle East and Africa. So Orange Middle East and Africa is using it to make its Maxit app, if you've run across that. And some other companies like Telkomsel and Bank Rakyat in Indonesia will also be using it to make their super apps. Seems like they're targeting telcos and banks and folks like that. Llama Index is launching a cloud service to let developers build data agents using unstructured data. In other words, you don't have to have it all labeled in a database. You can just point it at a bunch of files. Llama Index is open source. Millions of people have downloaded it and used it for free. It creates custom agents and extracts info and generates report. It can connect files like PDFs and PowerPoint with apps like Notion and Slack. If you don't want to roll that all yourself, you can now try Llama Cloud. That's the new announcement here. You can pay the Llama company for a software as a service installation, or even use it in a virtual private cloud. A couple other Mobile World Congress announcements here. China's second largest car maker, Geely, announced it will integrate its G-Pilot system across all its brands, including Galaxy, Zeekr, and Link. G-Pilot handles driver assistance features, so highway navigation, self-park. It follows BYD in China as introducing some self-driving features into cars. And Xiaomi says you might be able to buy its electric vehicle outside of China within the next few years. So this is Xiaomi just indicating, yes, we plan to go global. Xiaomi entered the EV market in 2021 and has sold more than 100,000 cars in China. DTNS is not possible without you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting us on Patreon. Big thanks to our big supporters like Philip Less, Howard Yermish, John Atwood, and also our brand new folks. Local PC Guy has joined us as a patron. Thank you, Local PC Guy. And everybody else, if you would like to join as well, head to patreon.com/DTNS. There's more we need to know today that didn't happen in Barcelona. Let's get right to the briefs. Apple refreshed the specs of its mid-range iPad Air tablet. It gets the M3 chip, which is a generation behind the current M4, but a significant upgrade from the M1 powered Air. It also now supports Apple Intelligence because it's got that M3 chip. The 11-inch iPad Air is $599. The 13-inch is $799. And Apple announced new Magic Keyboard attachments as well for each of those models. The 11-inch version is $269. The other's $319. Has an extra row of function keys and a larger trackpad. I was convinced it was going to be a MacBook Air, and I guess the week's not over yet, but not today. Today, it's the iPad Air. A company called Aescape, that's spelled AESCAPE, will install its robotic massage arm tables at 60 Equinox gym locations. The unit is a gray bed with robot arms attached to each side, like the bed's about to hug you or be a dentist or something terrifying. But apparently it's safe to use. You do have to wear some special clothing that makes it easy for the machine to build a 3D model of your body. You lie face down, and then you can see a touch screen where you can control the machine by directing it where to massage. Like, I want it up here on my back. You can just point to the model of your body on the screen. It can only do between the shoulders and the knees. Can't do the head and neck yet. And it's just working on calves in the lab because they want to do this without damaging you. Costs $60 for 30 minutes. TSMC announced it's going to invest an additional $100 billion in the United States over the next 4 years. In addition to the 3 fabrication facilities it's building in Arizona, TSMC is now going to build 3 more fabrication facilities, as well as 2 advanced packaging facilities and an R&D center, also in Arizona. The packaging is important because you can build the chips in Arizona, but you got to send them somewhere to be packaged. And that might be Mexico or Brazil or China or somewhere else. So having at least 1 or 2 packaging facilities close by will speed things up there. Analyst Ming-Chi Kuo estimates the higher cost of operating a plant in the U.S. is going to reduce TSMC's gross margin by 1.5% to 2%. TSMC says, or TSMC doesn't say this, Kuo says it, that TSMC will likely have to drive down prices in its supply chain to compensate for that increased cost. Meanwhile, Foxconn says its server assembly plant near Guadalajara, Mexico, will complete construction within a year. The plant is expected to be the largest of its kind and will make servers using NVIDIA chips. Foxconn does not expect tariffs on goods coming to the U.S. from Mexico to slow down this investment. They say everybody knew these tariffs were coming and the investment has only increased. So Foxconn still on target to build its assembly plant in Mexico. A U.S. official denied to Bloomberg reports from The Record, the New York Times, and Washington Post that all had sources saying the U.S. Secretary of Defense had ordered a halt to operations against Russia. On The Record, Pentagon wouldn't say anything about this because they're not going to say anything about having operations against Russia, but they did say the secretary has no greater priority than the safety of the U.S. troops. I'm not even sure if that confirms or denies this. But anyway, Bloomberg says it's got a source going, no. We have not stopped our cyber actions. U.S. Cyber Command oversees 135 cyber mission force teams. And if you want my guess on this, it's that they probably stopped some actions, probably particularly related to Ukraine, because the U.S. is suspending a lot of its support of Ukraine. And that got confused in the message of all being all these kind, not all operations altogether. Anyway, I don't really know that. That's just my guess. Speaking of, Eutelsat is in negotiations with the European Union for loans to provide satellite internet service through its OneWeb network to Ukrainian forces. OneWeb is the second largest satellite internet provider to Starlink. That's a tenth the size of Starlink, but it's up there. Starlink is still working for Ukrainian military forces at the moment, but there are concerns that given the disruption of funding and support from the U.S. to Ukraine, Starlink might not work for longer. The European Union owns some of the Starlink terminals that Ukraine uses. Those should continue to work. It's not like Starlink's going to block Ukraine, but the U.S. funding of it or Starlink's direct subsidization of it is in question. So Eutelsat is trying to step up and say we can provide some supplemental service as well. Finally, China's Ministry of Commerce said Tuesday that it added 15 U.S. companies, including drone maker Skydio and drone AI software maker Shield AI, to an export control list. This prohibits the export of dual-use technologies. Those are technologies that have a non-military purpose, but could also be used for military. So drones are one of those. It prohibits the export of those kinds of technologies from China to these companies. So particular chips and parts and things like that you might have made in China, well, Skydio and Shield AI and the other 13 companies on this list can no longer get those. China also added 10 U.S. companies, including gene sequence maker Illumina, to an unreliable entity list, which prohibits all exports and imports to and from these companies between China and anywhere else. Meanwhile, China's close to issuing official guidance to promote the use of RISC-V chip designs. RISC-V is an open standard instruction set administered by a Swiss nonprofit entity called RISC-V International. It's similar to ARM, but open source. You don't have to pay a license to ARM to use it. Those are the essentials for today. Let's dive a little deeper in the ongoing stories and follow up with Mr. Jason Howell. Jason Howell has been surviving Mobile World Congress in Barcelona and took some time from his busy schedule to rest his feet and talk to us about the trends. Jason, how are you hanging in there?
I am exactly that, hanging in there. I just got back to my hotel room after 3 very exhausting days. Like, I'm trying to compare it to the Consumer Electronics Show because, you know, they're technology conferences and everything. And there's some things that I really enjoy about Mobile World Congress, but I don't know that I felt this exhausted after a couple of days at a convention in a very long time. I'm trying to think of CESs where I felt this exhausted and I'm coming up empty.
Yeah, adding the jet lag to it
totally does
certainly doesn't help. But through the jet lag haze, your eagle-like eyes have spotted the top trends of Mobile World Congress. We kind of talked about the trend of concept releases yesterday. Just in all the announcements. But what are you finding are the top trends? I
mean, you know, for shows like this, concepts are always just a ton of fun. They always get a lot of pickup. I don't know if you talked about the detachable lens concepts,
the Xiaomi one,
Xiaomi modular optical system, which I went hands on with and thought was pretty cool. But also, Realme has an Ultra concept that's the same kind of thing, except it's not fastening with magnets. It's an actual like mechanical, like turning, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, so, like you snap it in and then turn to lock it?
Yes, it's like you have to put a base in and then you can attach like a micro four thirds lens to it. Oh. And I mean, it's a huge honking beast when it's all put together, but it feels a little bit sturdier than the Xiaomi one, which in my mind, like that big expensive glass hanging on by, you know, a tight magnetic snap. And I just know I'm the person that's going to make that magnet break. You know what I mean?
It doesn't take that much force to knock your iPhone off of a MagSafe charger or your Samsung. So yeah, I can see what you're talking about.
Yeah, let alone a huge honking lens attached to it. So you talked about the concepts. We don't need to, you know, drag into those necessarily. Some of the things that I'm seeing, it will surprise no one. AI is everywhere. That's kind of like a given at this point. But going beyond just the AI inside everything is the large action model / agent embedding of AI on everything. Honor has its own UI agent that's leveraging Google Gemini in order to perform actions on the smartphone, and you actually watch in real time. You know, if you say, I need to call an Uber to go to here at whatever time, you can watch it kind of navigate your phone as if you're doing it. Motorola has their Moto AI large action model that does something similar. Nubia has an agent that's running on DeepSeek So, that's interesting. It's been all this curiosity around DeepSeek, and now they've got a partnership with Nubia to do kind of agentry on the device. And then, of course, I mean, Google, has been there, is laughing at everybody else. It's like, yeah, we've been here forever. And, with
we
their
just didn't
Gemini
tell anybody for a while, but now,
yeah, totally. But anyways, it's a real big trend here is agents just as much as AI.
Yeah. So, and that is on device models, not cloud models for the most part, it sounds like. Do you know which services the various folks are using, or are they keeping that close to their vest?
Well, I mean, for performing the actions, the actual action of like opening the Uber app, blah, blah, blah. I mean, Honor, for example, is leveraging Gemini. So it's basically leaning into Gemini on device in order to perform those actions. I imagine Nubia. Yeah, I didn't ask that about Nubia, but it's DeepSeek. I don't know if it's a local versus in the cloud, but yeah, pretty much.
With DeepSeek, you would assume they would go local because it's so easy with DeepSeek because it's so small. Yeah,
totally. But
and then Honor, did they say, are they using like Baidu or Alibaba or something like that?
No, Honor's using Gemini, actually.
Oh, they are. They're using Gemini. So this is an international release. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So the AI trend is agentic now. That's what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah, totally. And I actually had a sit down with Android lead Samir Samat from Google for a little bit earlier today, and we talked a little bit about that. And I don't know at what point I'm going to have that released. I have so much work ahead of me with all the footage that I've captured, but definitely talked about kind of like the future that I keep wondering, which is when does AI fade into the background, and when do these things just become this phone does a cool thing, and it does a cool thing because it's got AI. Yeah. And, I don't know when that is. Samir, certainly was saying he's looking forward to the time and thinks that it's, somewhere down the line when we get there, but they've got work to do to get there, I suppose.
Yeah. All right. So concepts, AI, what else?
Yeah. Thinness when it comes to smartphones. We heard about, at Samsung Unpacked, they surprised everyone with the Edge, the Galaxy Edge, the really thin that you couldn't touch. If you were at the event, you couldn't touch it. They had it out on the show floor here, but you still can't touch it. Although the ropes that surround it are a lot closer. And so while I was there, everybody was reaching out and touching it, and then somebody would come over and shake their finger at them. So you can sort of touch it. But anyways, what I found interesting is another brand, which, in the US is definitely not a big brand. It's called Techno. They've got a big presence in
that's
markets.
Transcend, is that right?
That's a good question. I think you are right. Transcend with Techno. I know
they're a Chinese company that I know are very big sellers in a lot of African countries.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Big sellers in Africa. They had a device that had a lot of people looking at it called the Spark Slim. And I got to say, having seen both of those devices firsthand, and I did get to paw around at the Spark Slim, I gotta say, Techno's solution is a little slicker. Like it actually, where Samsung's Edge looks kind of, I don't know, kind of like construction work metal or something, maybe it looks kind of rough edges and it's beautiful because of its minimalism or whatever. The Techno Spark Slim has this really thin, what was it? It was, I have a spec somewhere on it. I mean, it was ridiculously thin and just kind of had this like curvature to it, 5.3 millimeters thin. 146 grams. They actually added weight to it because it was too light and a 5,200 milliamp hour battery. So it's not sacrificing. What's weird about that is that it's not the silicon carbon that we keep hearing about. I asked about that specifically and he was like, well, actually it's not that. I'm like, so how do you have it so thin? Yeah. You have this big battery in there.
And they wouldn't say?
No. He said it's our own kind of thing. It's our own proprietary secret sauce, but he didn't go any further than that. Yeah.
Very curious if it's just the same thing under a different name.
I know,
or something.
Totally.
Or is there
I called it out specifically.
They're hiding in there. That's interesting.
Glasses, get like wearable glasses. That seems. Although to be fair, I feel like this is like a trend that's been around for a while. It's like every year, this is going to be the year of glasses. Google was there more than a decade ago with Google Glass. They weren't really showing off the Project Astra glasses at MWC, but you can definitely pick up on the kind of vibe in the room that everybody thinks that because AI is a big deal and AI and glasses seems like a perfect fit.
Yeah.
That everybody wants to be there. Techno had their Techno AI Glasses Pro with camera, AI, AR video in the lenses. I went and visited the folks at TCL. They had their Ray Neo X3 Pro, which was also, kind of glasses form factor. Still a little chunky, but they're getting smaller. And the displays look pretty
resolution on that one, supposedly. Did you get a chance to test that out?
Yeah, absolutely. I got to kind of run it. They had a few different glasses actually that they were showing off. The AR glasses, if I remember correctly, weren't as impressive on the resolution front. They had another one, which I failed to write down the name, that's more about personal media viewing. So it's kind of like the kind of glasses that you take onto a plane if you want to watch a movie on a big screen and not have this, this huge beast on your face. And I have to say that was really impressive just from the sharpness, clarity, color. It was it seemed like a great way to watch something. I'd do it.
That's the X3 maybe?
Yeah, maybe it is the X3 versus
That's the one with the 2500 nit brightness and all of that from what we talked about yesterday on the show.
Okay. Yeah, the X3 and then the X3 Pro are the ones that are kind of like more like Astra. So they have a few different in that line if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So glasses, I feel like glasses are in the Palm Trio stage. Like they're really impressive and interesting, but kind of an early adopter thing still. And the people who have them rave about them. And you've got the one brand with Meta that's really well liked, but nobody has quite cracked the mainstream acceptance quite yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Meta has their glasses and they are augmented, but they're not doing video in front of your eyes. I mean, I checked out, like I actually got to use the Project Astra that Google showed off last year. I did that in December. And I got to say, those are the most impressive ones that I've used. And it's interesting from my perspective, having used them, because anyone I run into hasn't. And then they see these other ones and they're like, oh my God, that's the best thing I've seen. And me in my head, I'm just like, you ain't seen nothing yet. Like seriously, Google did a really great job. If what they showed me at Mountain View is what ends up getting released, it's going to blow your mind. It was really impressive.
All right. Any last trends before we wrap up?
File sharing between devices inside of the ecosystem. Honor's doing it. Motorola's doing it. They're all trying to make it so that it's seamless and easy to transition files between multiple devices within the ecosystem and outside of the ecosystem. Let's see here. Deepfake detection. Some of these devices actually are embedding systems on device that can recognize either deep tech voice or deep tech video calls and can alert you to that. I think that's
so like an anti-fraud system. That's interesting.
Totally. Yeah, really interesting. And then finally, this isn't really about products. This was just about the event itself. AI generated video for marketing materials, like looking at their gigantic big screens. And I mean, it was unabashedly, unashamedly, totally AI driven. And, you see those parts where the arm disappears and then comes back, or the fingers kind of flicker into existence and out. And I'm just looking at it, I'm like, wow, they really leaned into this stuff. It's really interesting to see that on the big screen.
That's amazing. I don't want to take too much away from Android Faithful's episode, but did you get Hamon?
Yes, although not as much as I expected. There's Hamon where I'm staying, and this hotel has really great food actually, and they have a breakfast every morning, and every time I go down there, there's a little plate with Hamon. It's got a little label on it, so that's the Hamon that I've gotten that I know of, and I'm sure at some of these events where they're handing out food, I'm sure I've had handout Hamon.
And Hamon. Amazing. Jason, thank you so much. I know you're incredibly busy, so I really appreciate you taking some time to chat with us.
Anytime.
Obviously, you'll be back on Daily Tech News Show on Thursday with Wen, but you've got a lot of content you're generating for other folks out there. If people want to keep up with it, where should they go?
Yeah, I mean, I'm writing for ZDNet for Digital Trends, and I'm going to be putting up a video at some point on my YouTube channel at Jason Howell. So I don't know one place, but follow me on social media, and I'll probably be tweeting about it or whatever.
Fantastic. Thanks, man. Stay safe.
Thank you. Yep.
What do you want to hear us talk about on the show? You can let us know in lots of different ways. You can email us. You can just shout it. Maybe I'll hear you. But one of the better ways is to submit a story on our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at reddit.com/r/Daily Tech News Show. We like to end these episodes with some shared wisdom. Today, Martin trying to help us understand that question Rob and I were talking about on Monday. Why did Zoom beat Skype? As we say goodbye to Skype soon, Martin says that Microsoft didn't want Skype to succeed. Microsoft could have used the opportunity to promote Skype, a brand that older generations were already familiar with, and drawn people back. Skype used to be synonymous with video calling, but instead they chose to push Microsoft Teams, which Martin notes they don't find pleasant to use. Martin does not find Teams pleasant to use. Yes, that is true. There's no debating that Microsoft wanted people to use Teams instead of Zoom and Teams instead of Skype. And that's a really good point, that Microsoft wanted people to use a tool that did more than Skype could do. And they thought Teams was more competitive because it could do a lot of things that Zoom couldn't do. Zoom has added a lot of those things since, but at the time in 2020, Zoom couldn't do all the things Teams did. So Microsoft probably thought we have a better chance of beating Zoom by using Teams because it can do more. I'm not sure they were right, but they obviously have wanted to continue to develop Teams, not Skype. And I think they gave Skype a good long life. They would have been justified in ending its support a long time ago. So I am sad to see it go. It's the end of an era, but I totally get why. And I think Martin's onto something, is that Microsoft's priority was Teams, and Skype kind of was already on life support by 2020 anyway. Also, Michelle and Aaron were among those letting us know some of our shows did not hit the Patreon feeds as expected yesterday. This is a reminder to patrons that we are still working with Patreon as they test the multiple feeds feature. So we appreciate your feedback in letting us know when something like that doesn't work. We forward that along to Patreon, and it generally tends to get fixed fairly fast. In fact, Michelle and Aaron, I think, responded that it showed up before I could respond to say, yes, I've heard your feedback, because what I did first was go and tell Patreon about it, and they got it fixed. So keep the feedback coming. That is a beta feature, and it's getting good. And if you didn't know, because you're not a patron, you can get multiple RSS feeds from Patreon. And despite what I'm just saying, 99.99 several 9% of the time, they've been working great, and they've been working better every day. So you can become a patron and say, well, I just want DTNS briefing. Oh, and I want the bonus episodes, or I just want DTNS live. I don't want DTNS briefing. I don't know why you're listening to me say this now, if that's the case, but that is now an option at patreon.com/DTNS. Big thanks to Jason Howell, Martin, Michelle, and Aaron for contributing to today's show. Thank you for being along for Daily Tech News Show. It is made possible by our patrons. Can't say that enough. Big thanks to you, patrons at patreon.com/DTNS. There's also that DTNS live version where we kind of sit back and kick back and discuss a little more. It's a longer show, but you can find out more about that at dailytechnewsshow.com. Talk to you tomorrow.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.